Hey guys, what's up? I'm Dylan, and today I'm going to be talking about everything you need to know about college essays. This video is going to be loaded with information, so make sure you watch the whole thing because it's all very, very important, and it's everything that I've gathered throughout my college application process, all these different resources that I've read and learned about, and so it's really important that I share these with you today. All this information that I'm going to share with you today helped me get into Stanford, USC, UCLA, NYU, and more. So I'm especially going to be talking about the personal statement, which is found on the Common application, but other applications have certain versions of their personal statement as well. The UCs have these 4 personal insight questions, which are a little bit different than the personal statement, and I'll get into that later on what the differences are between the UC application and the Common App application. But more generally, these tips kind of apply to all types of college essays. So, your personal statement is your chance to tell the admissions officers your personal story. And by this, I mean your values and the way that you think, but through a certain experience that you're going to share with them. And I'm not talking about the certain things that you do, like you're just sharing your resume, like I did this and this and this, because they already see that stuff on your application. So your essay is the chance to tell your story. There's a quote that I kept hearing and seeing on webinars and stuff, and I think it's really important, so I'm going to read it to you right now. If your friend finds your essay on the ground and it has no name on it, they should be able to tell that it's yours just by reading it. This just shows that the essay that you write needs to be very unique and personal to you. Because sure, a million other people have stories to tell, but how are you gonna make yours stand out and actually be about you rather than just the cliche type of story that everyone tells? So that brings me to topics. People always ask me if a certain topic is worth writing about and whether they should write about it or not. And my answer to them usually is that it's not really as much about the topic rather than the way that you write it. There are a lot of overdone topics that people have done. I think just off of the top of my head, like sob stories or sports, oh, we were losing the game and then we won the game and blah, blah, hard work, teamwork, stuff like that. Or just writing about a family member, which I actually did write about a family member in my Common App essay. So all of that was to say that you can still do a story that a lot of people do, but it's the way that you write it and the angle that you take it that really matters. One time I read someone else's essay about them trying to fall asleep at night and then they had to turn on the fan. But then they made this whole other metaphor about music and how the fan represented that and all the things that were going on in their head. And I just found that so amazing and so creative, such a creative way to write about turning on a fan so you can fall asleep with the white noise. So it's all in the way that you write it, really. And if you want to read that essay, you can check out this book, which I read a bunch of different essays that got into Stanford, and I found it really helpful for me. You might also want to consider how you can use your personal statement to be the main thing that the rest of your application centers around. And what do I mean by this? In terms of telling your story and strategizing for your whole college apps, I'm actually going to make a whole other video about this and how I did it, because I made mine about my grandfather and dealing with Alzheimer's and how I wanted to propose an app for a solution. But that connects a bunch into my passions for art and tech, which I talk about in all my other essays. And so just a lot of things are interweaving there. So if you want to do something like I did, where your essay is about someone else who made an impact on you, you really have to make sure that you're talking about how that person relates to you. It always has to come back to you in the end. It can't just be about this person, because okay, sure, we're learning all about this person in your essay, but what does that have to do with you? So don't just focus on them, focus on how they impacted you, how they changed your perspective, challenged you, made you grow. I also think it might be better to focus on a specific experience or story rather than a bunch of different things, a bunch of different stories. For example, if you're talking about your love for science or something like that, maybe you want to talk about one time where you did this one thing related to science. You were doing this experiment, you were doing a science fair or something, and all the challenges and things that you had to go through that very specific experience. Instead of doing an essay that's well, I did this competition, I did this thing, and then I did this thing, and I did this thing. You don't want to just spill out all of your extracurriculars or whatever onto your essay and say, I did this, 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 and this, and this. Like, I mean, okay, great, but once again, I already said this, but we don't want to see what's already on your application. We want to learn about you and the challenges you went through and the values you gained and the way that it made you think and feel through your essay. So to reiterate, I recommend your personal statement be about one pivotal experience that challenged you, made you grow, made you learn, made you think, etc. All right, the next thing I'm gonna say is so important, and this is what I really did not know when going into the whole college application process, and that is college essays are nothing, and I mean nothing like high school academic essays. They are not really essays. Like, honestly, they are stories. They are prose. They are not your typical high school, like, intro paragraph, topic number 1, topic number 2, topic number 3, concluding paragraph. To sum up, blah, 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 blah. This was my argument, blah, 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 with these 3 things that you talk about throughout the entire essay. No, absolutely not. That kind of structure will work on AP tests, but it will not work on your college essays. So college essays are more like prose that you would read in a book. It's telling a narrative. It's telling your inner thoughts and feelings. It gives off more of your personality. You're more describing things in a creative, maybe metaphorical way. You want it to be engaging. Show, don't tell. That's the number one thing. What does that mean? It means don't just list like, I did this, and then I did this, and then this happened, and then this happened. Like, really engage the reader with your words and how you explain certain things. And I know I may not be doing a great job of explaining this right now, but I'm actually going to analyze my own common application essay, and I'll link the video right here once it's done so that you can see exactly what I mean by this and how I did this in my writing. So a really good way to get in the practice of this is really just to read other people's essays and to read books. In terms of structure, an anecdote in the beginning is a good way to grab the reader's attention right away. Once again, that means the narrative and the story and all of that stuff, but you don't want it to drag on too long, because you can go on and tell a story, but you want to make sure at the same time you are hitting the points that you want to hit. You are telling the story, but you are also saying how that changed you as a person. So make sure that this story hits on how this gives you a new perspective. A general essay writing structure goes like this, and I give full credit to the college essay guy who wrote this amazing book that I recommend everyone read because I read it when I was doing my college applications. It's linked in the bio, but it's called College Essay Essentials. You've probably heard about it if you watched my other videos. So the structure goes like this: an anecdote or inciting incident, and then the status quo, like how things are now, raising the stakes, the turning point, the final act, and then the outcome, your new status quo. I think that structure generally works for a lot of essays. Obviously, it's more aimed towards the Common App personal statement. The UC application, like I mentioned in the beginning of this video, is a little bit different. So now I'm going to talk about what those differences are. Although I did a whole bunch of talking earlier in this video about how you don't want to just restate everything that's on your application in your essay, the UC essays are a little bit different in that they're actually more of a glorified resume. Specifically for this UC application, you can use a specific activity that you did and then help that with your topic for the essay. You just want to get straight to the point, answer the question, but yes, still make it sound good, still write well, and still, yes, you can be creative with your writing, but I'm saying you don't need to be like over the top with the fluff. We don't need that for the UC application. So it's a little bit more informational rather than poetic. You're explaining what you have done that sets you apart, and in each PIQ, or personal insight question, you want to convey different values. So basically, the common application allows you to be a lot more vulnerable with what you're saying, but the UCs are a little bit more straight to the point, although you can still be vulnerable if you want to. So a way of structuring your UC PIQs would be what you did, problems you solved, lessons learned or values gained, the impact you had, and how you applied what you learned to other things in your life. So that's what I have to say about structure. It's kind of almost like a movie or a book. Like, I already said a book. It's just not the way you write academic essays at all. Do not think that you are writing an academic essay when you write your college essays. So here are some storytelling writing techniques that I have for you guys to make your essay sound more like a narrative. You can use poetic devices. You can defamiliarize a certain image or situation by highlighting its qualities or functionality without actually naming or stating what it is. So think like, what are some ways I can describe a basic thing but make it seem really interesting by describing it in a different way instead of just stating exactly what the thing is. And after you describe the situation or the object, maybe you want to analyze it afterwards. So like, what significance did that thing have? Metaphors are also a great way of making your writing more personal, unique, and creative. Perhaps you can have a running metaphor throughout your essay that connects to something else that's also really personal to you, maybe through an object or a person or a situation. All right, now I'm gonna be moving on to the don'ts. So I guess everything that I did before was like the do's, if this is a do's and don'ts type of video. So now I'm gonna be talking about things you definitely don't wanna do in your college applications and what you should do instead. So I've been doing some college app essay editing recently, and editing and revising and proofreading, and then I'll usually give you a paragraph at the end talking about your essay as a whole. So if you want me to review your essay, make sure you contact me. You can contact me through Instagram or YouTube or whatever, and I'll tell you how to set that up and I'll tell you my rates. So here's some things that I've come across that I want to state to everyone. In terms of describing things, like I just said, you don't want to just state what the thing is. I constantly find myself writing the words how and why when I'm editing essays, because I want to know, okay, yes, this is a thing, you said a statement, but why does this matter? How does this relate to you? Okay, you like this. Why do you like this? Is there some reason behind it? How does it make you feel? Be specific. Instead of saying, I'm interested in XYZ or I'm fascinated in XYZ, we want you to show us. Don't just tell us. What is it that is so interesting or fascinating about this thing? What are the very specific things that make this stand out to you and impact you? Instead of saying, I think XYZ or I believe XYZ, just say the XYZ, because we already know that it's you who believes it, because you're the one who's saying it. We already know it's your stance. So you don't need to waste your word count on, I believe, I think, I blah, blah, blah. Just say what it is. Don't use cliches, period. Like, just do not use a cliche phrase. It's been overdone. No one wants to see it. Don't use second person, meaning don't use the word you. You don't really want to directly talk to the admissions officer. Don't start with a quote. I think this also relates to like don't use cliches thing. This is what I've seen a lot in my research on college app stuff. So yeah, don't use a quote. Don't use cliches and don't say you. And last but not least, this is so important. Do not flood your essay with a bunch of fancy words that you use on the SAT. Or maybe you didn't use it on the SAT, whatever. Don't flood your essay with a bunch of fancy words. This isn't a competition to see who can use the most fancy words. It doesn't actually make your essay sound better, it just makes it seem like you're trying way too hard. Some of you may have come across my YouTube because of what I've posted on TikTok, and I have done a lot of videos on fancy words and making fun of how people use fancy words in their essays in college. But this is not what you want to do for college application essays. To get into college, you don't want to use all these fancy words. And then once you're in college, people use them anyways, and I guess it makes you sound smarter, but still, you always want to watch it with the fancy words, because sometimes it doesn't actually make you sound smart. Of course, you can use a word here and there, but you want to make sure that it is appropriately placed, like it actually makes sense within the sentence, and that it flows well and goes with the rest of the vibe of your essay. All right, that was a lot of information. I hope you retained it all, or took some notes, or I don't know, took something away with it. I did gather all of this information from a lot of different sources, and if you want actual resources to the information that I gathered, I actually have a link, once again, in the description that literally gives you a Google Drive of a bunch of resources for free, so please utilize that resource. I'm also making a video on the exact process of how to write your college app essay. I'll be putting it right here, so make sure you check that out once it's uploaded, because I guarantee it will be very helpful for you. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. watching. Let me know in the comments if this helped you. Let me know if you have any questions. You can always reach out to me and I will do my best to answer you and get you the help that you need. So thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.